So Everton and Forest facing potential points deductions. Well, Forest boss Nuno Espirito Santo spoke at his news conference this morning and asked if he knew all the details about possible punishment when he took the job at the City ground.
We are all concerned in the club, but me as a coach is nothing that I have to think or to deal with that. My job is clear, is to prepare the team. We have a match tomorrow and this is what we are focused on.
Within your preparations, are you talking to your players about this at all? Because could it be a distraction, a concern for them?
No, today we're going to have the training session. And we know, the players know the situation, but what I'll tell them is exactly what I'm telling to you. Let's forget about this and focus on our job. And our job is tomorrow, Blackpool. And
just one more thing on this. Does it change at all your plans for this January transfer window? Have you been told that things have got to change in terms of any plans you had?
No, not at all. It doesn't change anything. We have to continue our work. The balance of the squad is important. We have to organize the squad, as I tell you before. The idea is to improve. It's not easy, especially in this window, but we are working on that, trying to find the best way in the squad to deal to the rest of the season.
Did you know, though, before you took the job, that the club might...
I just answered. We know that all the clubs have been watched on that aspect. Forest, all the clubs in the Premier League, the Championship, all the clubs, all over the world, the financial fair play is it's an issue.
Well, our chief reporter, Kave Soloko, rejoins me now to continue talking about this really interesting story, Kave. We spoke yesterday about how the timing of Brennan Johnson's exit from Forest maybe contributed to these problems. So we've had some new information on that today as well.
Yes, some new information from my colleague Rob Dorset. Basically, in its simplest sort of form, Nottingham Forest had to make sure that in the 3 seasons ending June 2023, they did not lose more than £61 million. Now, in June 2023, they had an asset called Brennan Johnson, and they were willing to sell him. And if they could sell him for a sizable amount of money, then they would probably have been in the clear. And they believe that they had a deal lined up to sell him before the end of June 2023 to Brentford for £35 million. But Rob Dorset is telling us this afternoon that the player himself did not want to go to Brentford. In fact, he only wanted to leave Nottingham Forest for a so-called Big Six club. And he actually got his wish about 2 months later, because on deadline day, he moved to Tottenham for, I think, £47.5 million. Now, that was a great move for him, and it was also a great move for Nottingham Forest because they got a lot more money than they would have got from Brentford 2 months previously. But the problem is, it was after the cut-off, June the 30th, so they could not bank the money they made from selling Brennan Johnson into the accounts that they submitted to the Premier League 2 weeks ago. And I think one of the mitigating factors that the lawyers who will be representing Nottingham Forest will be arguing at the Independent Commission is, look, we wanted to try and comply. We tried to sell Brennan Johnson. If we'd sold him, if he'd agreed to go to Brentford, then we would have received this £35 million, which would have gone into our accounts, and we would have been in the clear. But the player himself didn't want to move. Now, I don't think anybody should be making Brennan Johnson a scapegoat. He's not the person who's to blame for Nottingham Forest being found to have breached the financial rules of the Premier League, because it's up to him where he decides he wants to play. But it is quite an interesting development, and I think it shows how difficult it is sometimes for clubs to comply with these rules, because there's so many different variables in football.
When we talked in the last hour, you said that there may well be an element of sympathy from other Premier League clubs, depending on how big these breaches are. But some ultimately feel that rules are rules, they're sticking by them, everyone should have to stick by them. Based on the conversations that you're having, is the system working? Is it not? What are the arguments for both sides?
I think on the one hand, you could say, look, the system is working because clubs are not spending very much money in the transfer window. It's also working because clubs who have allegedly broken the rules are being charged and are being punished. But you could also say, were these rules really designed to deal with a club who are having so many problems like Everton? Or were they really designed to deal with a club like Nottingham Forest, who came up into the Premier League through the playoffs with a squad full of players who were on loan, who went back to their clubs, and so Forest quickly had to sign new players to make sure that they're competitive in the Premier League? I'm not sure that's what these rules were designed for. I think these rules were really designed to stop, for instance, state-owned clubs spending too much money and hoovering up all the best players in the world. So that's an interesting debate about, you know, these rules, because as you heard from Sean Dyche there, he is saying, look, you know, clubs should be judged by what they do on the pitch, their performances on the pitch. That is what the league table should reflect, not what accountants are doing behind closed doors. I think there is a little bit of sympathy for what's happened to Forest and what's happened to Everton amongst other Premier League clubs. But as you said to begin with, ultimately, rules are rules, and the Premier League is all about dog eat dog. Clubs are looking after their own interests. Let's wait and see what these breaches were, because if the breaches were tens of millions of pounds, then I don't think there will be that much sympathy. If we find out that the breaches were just a couple of £1 million, then I think there will be some sympathy amongst other Premier League clubs.
We wait to see, can't we? Thank you.